welcome to the video. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Spanish mackerel. I absolutely love targeting these fish because they are so much fun and amazing to eat, but to be honest, they can be a bit of a nightmare to catch. So I'm going to give you a little rundown of the tips I like to use whilst out in the water targeting these fish, and hopefully you can pick a thing or two up along the way. Now, in this video, I'm going to cover up on a few helpful tips, including tides, currents, what sort of structure to look for when targeting these fish, alongside some very helpful hunting techniques, such as closing the distance, using Flashers and Burley, and getting the right shot placement on your fish, which I think you'll enjoy, so stick around. Oh, and before we kick off, just keep in mind that the majority of these tips I have learnt from this sock puppet, so work these tips into some local knowledge of your own and you'll find some great success. Now, step one might be an obvious one, but if you find yourself in the right place at the right time, then half of the work has already been done for you. Spanish love their ledges and shoaly structures due to the high abundance of baitfish as a food source. So study your maps, try and find some areas where the deep water meets the shallows, particularly in areas facing the current or current tidal direction. And look, I generally target these areas myself because it's my belief that when the tide and current pushes up on these ledges, it disperses heaps of nutrients, which in turn attracts the bait fish, which again, in turn, attracts our predatory fish that we want. Now, get out there and have a go on a couple of reefs and ledges at different tides and different times. Start a little log, and eventually you should notice a trend on what works for your specific area. Well, now that we've covered off on how to find Spanish mackerel, now we're going to have to cover off on a little bit of a trickier topic of how to approach these fish. Now, take my word for it, they are not the easiest fish, but my biggest tip of all is do not make eye contact. And look, that is in direct contradiction to your mate's alleged game on a night out, but seriously, I have never seen a good situation come out of staring something down like my dog stares at its food. Look, Spanish are extremely aware. So 9 times out of 10, if they notice you staring them down, they're out. Instead, if you notice a Spanish swimming towards you underwater, you can try and play their awareness into your favor by aiming maybe 5 to 10 meters in front of the fish. Spanish, being predatory and super inquisitive, can sometimes think, what is that object that this person is staring at? And literally swim straight between you and that imaginary baitfish. Boom, the perfect opportunity. Now, in a completely different situation, the Spanish just may not be interested in what you've got going on the day. So that's a great opportunity to crack out Flashers and Burley. Now, Flashers, when deployed correctly, imitate a struggling baitfish and can really turn the fish's attention around, and they can come rocketing in. Or at the very least, it helps them to stay around for a couple more seconds. This gives you the perfect opportunity to dive down and get into position without spooking that fish because its attention is already on the flasher. And this does work hand in hand with Burley. Burley is a great way to get the fish in, trust me, but it is also a great way to get your ticket punched and your fish eaten by a shark. So, best rule with Burley is not too little or not too much. Have an experiment in your area and see how the sharks react. I know in my area, if I even breathe the wrong way, the sharks are onto me. Whereas using a flasher, I can get the fish's attention in without stirring up the sharks as much. Okay, so we've covered off on structure, where to find the fish, how to pique the fish's curiosity, and now we're going to cover up on one of the most important decisions you are going to make in a split second, which is where to shoot the fish. Now this could be the difference between you landing that amazing PB fish or you losing it or feeding it to the sharks. Now with these Spanish, personally, I generally aim for between the pec fin and the head of the fish, as I've noticed there's a lot more hard, bony structure and it normally produces a much better holding shot. But don't take my word for the law, because I know a lot of great mates that swear by shooting the fish in that rear third section, because once again, there is a lot of tough meat in that area. I just find myself gravitating back towards shooting them between the pec fin and the head, as I've had such a great success rate over the time. Regardless though, a good holding shot is the most essential part, as these fish fight really tough, and without a good holding shot, you're bound to lose one. So stay aware of those rig lines, loosen up the slack, let that fish run, and dive with good mates that are ready to do a second shot. Now, whenever I shoot these fish, I like to let my reel off as loose as possible without allowing any backlash, just to let the fish run and use up all its energy without potentially tearing it out. One downside of this is that you can accidentally let the flopper close and pull back through the fish. So finding that delicate balance between too much slack and too much pressure is exactly what you're going to have to figure out. But that's a good little baseline that I like to use alongside getting a mate to get down and get a second shot as soon as possible. We all like to be the hero and pull up the fish completely solo, but if there are sharks in the area, nailing that second shot, ripping the fish into the boat and having that success is far greater than losing a fish or potentially getting harassed yourself. Well guys, that's it. They're basically my tips to landing a Spanish mackerel. From the very get-go of finding the structure, finding the tides, attracting the fish, flashes, burley, not looking at them, getting your shot placement, all the way through to landing the fish and diving with a buddy. So hopefully these tips will help you get out onto the water and get into some of these incredible fish. But let me know how this video went. It's my first time doing a little information tutorial video, and hope to see you out in the water. Dive safe, always dive with a buddy, and only take what you are going to eat. Be sustainable.